All right. Now, today is our last Leaders in Housing Counseling webinar for 2025. And so we just want to take a moment just to say happy holidays to you all. From all of us at National Housing Resource Center, Bruce, Ellie, myself, Miss Ivy, thank you all so very much. We had a wonderful year with all of our Leaders in Housing Counseling webinar. And we just want to say thank you all so very much for joining us for our Leaders in Housing and Counseling webinars. Whether you watched it live or if you had watched the replay, we just want to say thank you. We want to say thank you to all of our panelists, our presenters, our attendees, and our sponsors for helping us along the way. So once again, we say thank you very much for joining us this year. We look forward to seeing you in 2026, and we ask that you all please look out for any information on our upcoming Leaders in Housing Counseling webinars. And we do also ask that if you have an idea or if there's some information that you want to know, to please just reach out to any of us and let us know, and we'll work on getting that webinar done and scheduled for 2026. All right. So with that, we're going to go ahead and move on. We're going to go.
And so with that, I'm going to hand this over to David and Willie. So David Young with Housing Action Illinois is going to start out by giving us some updates about what's going on with MISMO because things are moving forward. You may remember that several months ago we had a webinar on what's happening with the housing counseling data fields that are being entered into MISMO. And David's going to take a few minutes to talk with us about where we're at and what the status of all of that is. And then he'll hand it over to Willie to talk to us about the AmeriCorps Housing Counseling Corps for 2026. So David, I'm going to hand it to you.
Thank you, Ellie. Thank you very much. And good afternoon, everyone, or good morning if you are on the West Coast. It is great to be with you for this last Leaders Call in 2025. As Ellie said, I wanted to give you all a brief update about the housing counseling data set that we've been working on. This first slide is a picture of the NHRC Summit from 2017, where we spent a lot of time discussing the need for a housing counseling data set so that we could better show the impacts and the outcomes of our work, and also that we'd have the ability to interact with other systems, including loan origination systems and servicing systems. And so NHRC formally decided at this meeting to move forward with creating a data set, asked if I would be willing to chair that effort since Housing Action Illinois had created the original client management system guide. And in 2017, we got to work. And if we can go to the next slide, Ebony. I'm proud to say that as of October 1st of this year, that we have actually published the housing counseling data set in MISMO. It was released on October 1st. And this is the press release that went out. The housing counseling data set consists of approximately 250 data points, of which 50 data points are brand new to MISMO. And the data points really cover the life of the work that we do from pre-purchase education and credit counseling, group and individual workshops, and even the post-purchase and default counseling activities. So all of those things are included in there. One incredible thing about this new data set is that it actually expands the MISMO universe. And what I mean by that is that when MISMO, which stands again for the Mortgage Industry Standards Maintenance Organization, what MISMO has generally done with its data set is it's looked at the life of loan from when someone actually applies for a mortgage. So when they put that signature on the mortgage application, right through approval, closing, making those payments, the servicing, and then closing out the mortgage once that debt has been paid. And we know for our industry, a lot of that work is done long before a consumer actually completes a mortgage application. So we have, by creating this new housing counseling data set, actually expanded the universe and added data points that look at all of the activities that take place prior to mortgage application. And because our housing counseling data set resides in MISMO, it means that all of the other computer systems that use MISMO as their language have access to that data. So everyone's universe has been expanded, not just ours. So we're very excited about that. Next slide, Ebony. Now, this document is actually a copy, a page out of the actual data set, and it shows the mapping. I know most of you can't read this language, and it's quite all right. I know the point is very small, but what I wanted to do was just show you what the data set mapping actually looks like. So each one of these rows represents a different data point. And then each one of the columns provides the different definitions and the different answers to the questions for each one of these data points. So for us as housing counselors, it's not really important for us to be able to understand this language. It's really most important for our client management system developers to be able to understand this language because these are the data points that we're going to want in our client management systems. Those data points will allow us to better show our impacts and outcomes. And then also, most importantly, will facilitate the exchange of data with different systems. And so our client management systems would be able to talk with loan origination systems. Our client management systems would be able to talk with loan servicing systems. And that will create a lot of efficiencies within the marketplace. It will create a lot of efficiencies for our consumers, and it will also facilitate really transforming the mortgage process so that we can make sure that more consumers are getting the education and counseling that they need from us first before they're applying for a mortgage or they're working with a realtor to select a home. Next slide, Ebony. So if you look at this slide, this shows you how things are in the present with with HUD, specifically the Office of Housing Counseling in the middle, and housing counseling agencies reporting via their client management systems to HCS, and all of that information going directly to HUD. And then HUD using that information to report on the HUD exchange and also report to Housing Council to Congress about our housing counseling activities. Next slide, please, Ebony. This is what things are going to look like in the future now that we have created this housing counseling data set where we have these housing counseling standards. We can share information back and forth with lenders, with government-sponsored entities like Freddie Mac and Fannie Mae. With HUD, we can do additional research. So it makes the information, instead of going one direction between client management systems and HUD, that it's multi-directional and going to multiple different organizations. And it will be much better for us because, again, we will be in a much better position to share information, which will help us to better assist our consumers as they're looking to purchase a home. And finally, last slide, Ebony. And this is just a brief document. We actually shared this last April when we provided an update to the leaders call about the housing counseling data set. But I just wanted to share this again because this really starts to show how this information or how this process is going to move going forward. So you see that housing counselors in the upper left-hand corner, it's a information going back and forth between housing counselors and lenders, and information going back and forth between housing counselors and borrowers. And we are providing the home buyer assistance, and we're providing the foreclosure intervention. So all of this information goes back and forth now. And because lenders have more information about our performance, that's going to impact how things are done on the secondary mortgage market and with the mortgage-backed security investors. For example, this is one thing that could happen is that by our having more data and being able to show that consumers that complete pre-purchase education and counseling are approved faster and have less issues with default and foreclosure over the life of the loan means that a government-sponsored entity like Freddie or Fannie would have the ability of pricing those mortgage-backed securities higher because there's less risk to an investor. If they're able to do that, it's a benefit to Fannie and Freddie. It's a benefit to the investors, and it's a benefit to us because it shows the work that we're doing. And of course, all of this that we're looking to do is so that we are in a better position to charge fees for the services that we're providing. One of the issues that we have had for many, many years is when we've talked about providing fee for services, that we've had people from banks and from other entities that have said to us, well, we need more information about the impact and the outcomes that you're actually having. So now with this data set, we are in the position of doing that. We are in the position of showing the impacts and outcomes in a language that these folks understand, and it puts us in a better position to be able to secure those fee for services. So there will be a lot happening over the next couple of years. The major thing that you'll start to see is that our CMS developers will start integrating this data set into our client management systems. And then you will see that we will be embracing different applications that allow us to integrate and communicate directly with loan origination systems and with servicing systems. And it will allow us um, to really provide some significant benefits to our consumers, to increase efficiency, and as I said, to start generating fee for service revenue for our industry. So you should all give yourselves a pat on the back because all of you were invaluable in helping us to create this data set. We called on a lot of you to give us input as we were putting this together. So thank you for sticking this out over this last 8 years as we've been working on this system. But I'm just very, very excited to show you that this data set has been published and all of the things that we're going to be able to do with it. So thank you very much. I will be sticking around on the call and will be able to answer any questions that you have after Willie's presentation. But just wanted to share with you where we are, what we're doing, and how excited we are that we have been able to create this data set. So thank you very much, and I'll turn it over to Willie.
Hello, everybody. That was fascinating to learn about David. Although David Young and I share an office wall, sometimes it feels like I have no idea what work he's working on, and so that was really informative for myself. And to everybody on the webinar, hello, my name is Willie Heineke. I will be talking to you today about how to host Housing Counseling Corps members through the Housing Action Corps program here at Housing Action Illinois. That's a picture of me. I use he, him pronouns. My title is National Service Director. For the purpose of this webinar, you should know that I've personally served 3 terms of service all through AmeriCorps Vista. And my last term of service was actually at Housing Action Illinois as a Vista leader, where I've been employed ever since. And in my role, I supervise a team to make our program happen. I liaise with the federal government to make sure that all the bureaucracy that we need to get done is very simple for organizations like you. And I also do my best to find and recruit new organizations to host with us, which is what I'm here to talk to you about today. For the duration of my presentation, I'll be going over these 4 key areas. And by the end of it, I hope you can walk away with the relevant knowledge that you need to consider whether or not to collaborate with us and host your own position of a Housing Counseling Corps member in 2026. So first things first for us, Housing Action Illinois is a coalition of over 200 organizations that are all providing services that are focused around ending homelessness and making affordable housing happen. The coalition is made up of so many different types of organizations, including and not limited to a lot of housing counseling agencies. Housing Action Illinois does a lot of different style of work, and I'm only going to be talking about the work that I specifically help out with, which is our Housing Action Corps program. So since 2010, Housing Action has served as an intermediary organization, connecting organizations in our coalition with funding from AmeriCorps so that we can place positions to serve over a year and over the summer to increase the capacity of their programming. Since 2010, we've worked with 88 organizations. We've hosted hundreds of AmeriCorps members and hundreds of summer positions. And annually, that looks like just about 25 to 35 organizations and hosting at least 30 AmeriCorps members and summer associates. Now, unfortunately, there's that asterisk at summer associates because we have not been able to offer summer associates over the last several years due to funding constraints from the federal agency. And my last point before I jump into the Housing Counseling Corps specific part of our programming is if you haven't heard of AmeriCorps, or specifically AmeriCorps Vista, you can think about it like the domestic Peace Corps. Sometimes organizations might say they're like an intern or a fellow or something of that nature. And AmeriCorps really likes to stay away from that phrase intern. And the easiest way that I've noticed to communicate it, whether it's with stakeholders in my professional career or with people in my personal life, is that it's the domestic version of the Peace Corps. So as of 2022, we here at Housing Action Illinois made the decision to branch outside of Illinois for our AmeriCorps program because of the phenomenal work by David Young and our colleagues with our housing counseling intermediary to start to collaborate and start offering year-long AmeriCorps positions to housing counseling agencies so that during a year of service, these AmeriCorps members can do projects that are related to capacity building, right? Helping out your marketing to recruit more clients for your housing counseling programming, designing new parts for your programs, whether it's foreclosure, mitigation, or first-time home buyer, or pre-purchase, what have you. And a whole slew of other different types of projects that are getting accomplished while these AmeriCorps members are being trained and going through exam prep for the HUD housing counseling exam. And once they pass the exam, then they actually start conducting and actually being housing counselors for your agencies. And so over the years, we've been growing here and there. And last year alone, 80% of our members passed the HUD exam. Two of the members signed on for a second year of service. And actually, we had one AmeriCorps member sign on for a third year. So an organization that worked with us, started working with us 3 years ago, has had the same person building the capacity of their organization for 3 years. And now 5 of the 7 organizations continued hosting with us from last year. So a little bit about AmeriCorps. These are the 4 principles that they stand by for their programming. And I don't think I need to explain to anybody on this call how, when we see these types of pillars of programming, why it makes sense for organizations like yourselves to take advantage of this program. The part I'll speak to in general, though, is that for the most part, the AmeriCorps Vista positions work on the behind the scenes work at your organizations. We want to find you more funding. We want to design a new program and pilot it for you. We want to help you grow something that's working really well in a way that after the year or after 2 or 3 years, the work can be sustained by your organization and the work is somehow focused on ending poverty. Obviously, with this audience, we're working on housing security and affordable housing. Now, AmeriCorps members are their very own special type of position, right? They're not employees. And there's a very specific financial reason, which I'll explain on the next slide and later on. But here are some of those key differences. Legally speaking, AmeriCorps members are volunteers. And the way the federal government speaks to it and the contracts is that these are federal resources that are on loan to both Housing Action Illinois and the organizations that are specifically hosting them. During that year of service, AmeriCorps members are expected to receive different and more robust professional development than your standard employees, because by the end of their year, we want them either employed at your organization as housing counselors, we want them employed at another organization in the field, or serving in another year, perhaps even going back to further their education. And that's right, this is just a 1 year long position. Now, as I mentioned, people can serve for consecutive years, but each specific position is designed to be just 1 year long. Now, those key financial differences I brought up, here is what the AmeriCorps Vista member receives financially for their year of service. This is what Housing Action will pay and the federal government will pay the AmeriCorps members. Namely, you can see that nearly $25,000 a year salary. So that for a lot of people is below the federal minimum wage and is not something to take lightly. However, then at the end of their year, AmeriCorps members get to choose between those 2 end of service awards, with that single education award being quite popular and a lot of schools being willing to match the funding or the money can also be used to pay off student loans. Obviously, that cash stipend is just cold hard cash. And AmeriCorps actually does provide some robust services for members that are relocating over 50 miles from where they're currently living to serve at your organizations. And then there's a slew of other benefits, forbearance or deferment of student loans. And then AmeriCorps does provide some healthcare and childcare benefits, along with a 1 year of non-competitive eligibility status, which means essentially they can be fast-tracked into federal employment. And then there are additional benefits. Obviously, those last two are for our Chicago-based organizations mostly. Um, but the supplemental benefits are something that I'll be talking about throughout the webinar. And it's we strongly encourage and AmeriCorps allows for organizations that are hosting these positions to pay the members more, whether that's through a housing stipend that goes directly to their landlord or mortgage provider, a gift card to the local grocery store, what have you. And it goes a long way in recruiting and retaining your AmeriCorps members. Now, the last thing I'll say on this is that although there is the Chicago Furniture Bank, they're not the only furniture bank. And there might be furniture banks in your communities that are willing to provide low to no cost services for AmeriCorps members that are relocating to serve. So here's what a timeline looks like of what right this moment to, if you decide to work with us, how the year and the position will go. Our applications are available right now after this webinar. It can be shared with you directly. The applications to host a position are due to me by the end of January. I then spend the month of February and March reviewing your applications, providing feedback on them, and getting them ready to be submitted to the federal agency of AmeriCorps. Once they approve them, we then collaborate together between April and July to find the best member for your position and your organization. The members then join us and start in August. We provide a slew of trainings, including specifically our HUD housing counseling exam trainings for these members, as well as a few other interpersonal and technical skill development type trainings. And then December through January, we'll do a virtual site visit with you all to make sure everything's going according to plan, see if we can support or troubleshoot issues. We'll then do a final training in April that helps them spring into their next position, whether that's with your organization or another organization going back to school. We want to make sure that wherever they want to go, that we're doing our best to help them get there. And then in August 2027, the position ends. Along the way, there are a lot of resources for you organizations that are hosting the positions. We'll conduct our own webinars so that you get all the technical information you need on how to set yourself up for success. We have comprehensive written manuals and templates. We love meeting with our members and supervisors one-on-one, and then we, throughout the years, will offer open spaces where we create virtual space for people to get together and troubleshoot issues, talk about successes, and things of the like. Now, that's the overview of the program. This next part, I'm going to talk to you about what applying to host the position looks like. There are two components of our application. The first is a really simple Google form that's available online. It takes organizations no more than an hour to complete, and we're, for the most part, asking really simple information that you have on hand. What's your organization's mission statement? Who's going to be the one that supervises the position? Very briefly explaining what the goals of your position are, things like that. Now, that second component is the part that takes a bit longer for organizations, because while we use some of the online application to tell the federal government about who you are and where you're located, the supplemental document is information that we verbatim copy paste and send to the federal government for their review. And that's composed of two parts: a community needs statement where you explain with citable sources the level of poverty and housing insecurity of your communities, as well as their Vista assignment description, or excuse me, as well as the evidence that your work is effective at achieving the goals and addressing the community needs you've spoken to. And thankfully, there's groups like David and everyone that's made this MISMO together that data should be readily available for yourselves. So that second portion is the Vista assignment description. And although they are unique to AmeriCorps Vista, Vista assignment descriptions can be thought of as a job description combined with a work plan. You will state the quantifiable goals you have for the position and the activities that the member will complete to achieve those goals that helps your organization get to where you want to go with your mission statement. Now, there are a few resources we make available to organizations to write strong applications. One is an application guide that goes through best practices and common challenges with completing applications. We have a lot of example Vista assignment descriptions for you to review. And we also have citable sources that you can use for that community needs statement. And then we'll actually be hosting a webinar in early January that goes through how to write strong applications. I will open up the online application and go question by question with you, and I'll do the same for the supplemental document and share examples of what we think are strong and compelling supplemental documents. Now, that application process, kind of zooming in on that timeline I showed you in the previous portion of this presentation, is that right? Applications are available right now. You will submit them to us by January 31st. In February, I'll review them and provide feedback. You'll process it, and we'll get it ready to be awarded so that the federal agency can review them in March and April, and then we can start formally accepting applications for you to interview and get started in August. And then I want to point out that key data from 2025, which is key data I should have written from 2023 through 2025 for that matter, and that I have approved almost every single application overall, but also specifically within the Housing Counseling Corps application specifically, right? We want to help you. We want you to have these positions. And sometimes the federal government has their own language and their own definitions of terms that are different than what they are in Merriam-Webster's dictionary. And it's my job to be able to translate your needs and goals into the federal agency's preferred language, because of the applications I approve and announce, 100% of them are approved by the federal agency. So I hope that's not intimidating, or you're not thinking twice about whether or not, if I say it's okay, the federal agency will say it's okay. Now, we don't do this for free. The federal government requires that we pay and have a cost share system where we're paying some of the AmeriCorps member salaries. And so instead of charging one of you all the entire bit, we charge everybody a little bit. That standard rate, flat rate, is $8,000 for project participation fees. And then this is me bringing up the supplemental benefit again. We strongly encourage organizations to offer around $500 at least. You can go higher per month. And so if you get to that 500 number, the total would be $14,000. And I know budgets are tight, but $14,000 for a full year volunteer that's going to be making your lives easier and hopefully a future employee of yourselves is a pretty screaming rate. And I don't know of any other places that are offering such a financially lucrative opportunity for yourselves. Now, you can go higher than $500 a month. and that we've set that ceiling at whatever the National Low Income Housing Coalition's out of reach report says is the housing wage for your specific community or state for that matter. So just some best practices about how to complete your applications. And that first one is starting with the supplemental document and then working backwards. I mentioned the supplemental document usually takes organizations longer. And if you get that supplemental document created, it's going to be even easier to fill out the application itself. Um, Especially by completing that Vista assignment description, you'll already have the quantifiable goals and activities your AmeriCorps member will work on for their year. So filling the very simple parts of that on the application will be all the more easy. In the application, we do ask about what your thoughts are and plans are for recruiting your position and then tracking their impact. And don't gloss over those portions. That's definitely where the good get separated from the best of the applications, and the okay applications get separated from the good applications, because as if you write a compelling need statement and you have a highly likely to succeed position with good quantifiable goals, it doesn't really matter if you can't find somebody to do it, right? And then we all know with the federal government, if it's not documented, it didn't happen. And so we need to be able to make sure that we are tracking their impact so that we can report on the impact and efficacy of the program for continued funding. Right? We all know that we have a lot going on and that we have some short-term needs at every organization, and it's critical to ensure that there is some long-term vision of what this project and the work that's accomplished will do for your organization after the position ends and after the program ends, for that matter. And sometimes organizations, like, we know we need help, but we can't put our finger on what we want to do first or what would be the most useful. And so I encourage you to consider referencing your organization's strategic plan for identifying goals for how a position could make the most impact at your organization. And that strategic plan should also help you put the framing of the project in a long-term sustainable manner. Now, here are some common challenges that we all have. I kind of mentioned it at the beginning of the webinar about AmeriCorps members are the domestic version of the Peace Corps. They're not your administrative assistants, and they're not your interns. If you want an intern, go to your local college and get one. But if you want an AmeriCorps member to build your capacity for a year, continue listening to this webinar and talk with me. Now, they can do administrative work for their own programming. They can do their own reporting, but they shouldn't be doing your administrative work so that you can focus on other things. Now, this next one, with the direct services rather than the indirect capacity building nature, for the housing counseling course specifically, once they pass the exam, they can start providing direct housing counseling services, but that shouldn't be the only goal of the position, right? There should be one or two projects, maybe even three, that are focused on that kind of capacity building work, propping up a new program, building out something new for your organization in a way that supports and can be a significant portion of the work they're doing, in addition to that housing counseling servicing that you can have them do. I mentioned it, we all got a lot going on. I know none of you in your job descriptions have submit the housing counseling core application in as a listed responsibility. But starting that application, and specifically the supplemental document, the week of the deadline, leads to poorly written or late submissions, and we're not always able to make extensions for everybody. So I encourage you to start talking with your colleagues now, join that webinar on January 9th, and start working on that application then. And similarly to what I mentioned in the last slide about it's important to communicate your data tracking, uh, sometimes people won't come up with those quantifiable goals. How many volunteers are recruited? How much new funding is generated? How many new clients are recruited and receive services? We can just focus on, we know that it will be so useful for our organization, but we don't consider how that project will be measured for the member and in your community. Okay, so I just explained what it looks like to apply to host a position, and now I'm going to explain what it looks like to recruit your position. And some key data to keep in mind on this slide is that we were in Illinois doing quite well recruiting from 2010 to 2017, and then we started to slip in 2018. I think the economy started to do better. There's a whole lot of factors that slip into why that may be the case that I'm not going to jump into in full detail here, because we did, gosh, in 2022, we had that really low year of only recruiting 47%. But then we made some changes to our program and processes to the point where we're now recruiting this year at 93%, and we increased that number of applicants per position significantly as well. And for our housing counseling course specifically mimicked it too. We recruited 90% of the positions that we approved through our host site application process. And right here is one of the easiest ways I can communicate the impact of those supplemental benefits, right? That $500 a month at least that we suggest. Organizations as a whole that provided supplemental documents recruited at 89%, whereas the organizations that did not provide any supplemental benefits only recruited at 70%. So, you can spend $8,000 and have a 70% chance of recruiting, or you can spend $14,000 and have a 90% chance of recruiting, and retaining your member for the full year at that rate as well, right? Obviously, that $25,000 a year is not going to pay the bills in the long run. So it's important to keep this in mind. Now, some key dates for you to keep in mind that you can write down right now. The slide will be made available to you, and I will communicate this to you so many times in so many different ways if you work with me next year, that our start dates are immovable and predetermined by the federal government. And that one start date that we're offering this year is August 24th, and the deadline to recruit your position is July 17th. The deadline that's important to keep in mind is that this is the day that we guarantee we can start that person on August 24th if all of the AmeriCorps paperwork and application is submitted. That July 17th day is not the day that at 4 p.m. on that Friday you call me and say you interviewed somebody that applied directly to you and they've accepted your oral agreement. That July 17th date is the day that we have sent them a written offer. They have a complete AmeriCorps application that's reviewable by the federal government, and they've accepted that offer on the portal. So that was using some terminology you might not be familiar with. So I want to show you what our recruitment process looks like. And I hope it's just clear to you all on this slide, but throughout the last, or actually on this slide specifically, that we're never going to abandon you in this process. Housing Action, my staff members, our Vista leaders are going to collaborate with you every step of the way so that this is as easy for you as possible. And so one of the key ways we do that for you in the recruitment process is we actually review and screen almost every application you're going to get, because we worry about posting the positions on the AmeriCorps portal, which is essentially like what USA Jobs is to federal employment, is what the AmeriCorps portal is to AmeriCorps positions. So applications are submitted, we screen them, and then we share with you our scorecard, our thoughts about how strong of an application this person is for you, and then you conduct your interview. You decide who makes an offer, or excuse me, who receives an offer, and then Housing Action writes out the written offer and provides a call to the member to ensure, or the applicant to ensure clarity on the benefits and the responsibilities. Now, you can make your own offers with a call or an email, but we want to make sure that the financial benefits, the key AmeriCorps policies are communicated, and the steps to accept the offer are done correctly so that the applicant then accepts the offer on the AmeriCorps portal and initiates the federal agency's review of their citizenship, social security number, background check, things of that nature, so that they're all ready to start by that August 24th start date. Before I move on, I do want to just make sure it's clear too, we strongly recommend that you conduct one interview, right? I know in some of your employment practices, you may have a screening interview and then an interview with the supervisor, and then maybe like a conversation with the executive director. But these positions are really challenging to recruit, so we encourage you to do one interview. We've already screened them for you too. So you should figure out if they're going to be a good fit for your organization and they have the skills to complete the goals you want, and make that decision from there. Now, AmeriCorps does allow for some remote service, and that can be fully remote, that can be hybrid, some in person, some working from home or remote days. And then you can if your organization's policy is that it's full-time in person, that's the policy. Now, if they are going to serve remotely, either hybrid or full-time, the federal agencies made it clear that they still want those members in the community, or excuse me, in a reasonably commutable distance to your organization, the communities that you're serving. Now, although they've been clear about what their stance is, that reasonable commutable distance is left up to you all, the organization hosting the position's definition. And for example, for somebody not from the Chicagoland area, when you hear that so a member was going to serve and live in Northwest Indiana, you may think, oh, that's really far. That doesn't sound reasonable. But to people that are from the Chicagoland, we know that there are thousands of people that commute from Northwestern Indiana to come work in Chicago on a daily basis. And we know that is reasonable. And if that is the case, there's a silly, simple form that needs to be submitted on the start date. So last section, management and retention, and then it's time for Q&A. So thank you for sticking with me on this. Some key stats. Historically and last year, we retained 80%, or just about 80% of the positions that start their term completely finish a full year of service with us. And of those people that exit early, about half of them exit early because the organization hires them on, right? So even though it's that it really should be more like 90% of the positions complete the term or complete the goal of you getting to recruit somebody to work at your organization. And we did spend some time looking at how was our program working for our alumni? Were the members where they wanted to be? And the overwhelming response was yes. The program is functioning how it's intended, and we're actually outperforming the national averages across the board. With just almost 30%, almost 1/3 of respondents saying that they were offered a position at their organizations, and 94% saying that they were employed within 6 months of finishing their service. And that employed was also like in the graduate program that they wanted to be in, whereas that national average was 67%. I am not going to read every point in this slide to you because it is a fair amount of information. I think even some of my public speaker trainers would tell me to not have this much information on a slide. Again, similar to the host site application process, similar to the recruitment process. What I want to make sure is clear to you all is that after we recruit the position, we don't abandon you. We're gonna make sure you and your member have all the resources, all the templates, all the information you need to succeed and be supported in that year of service. So we do ask that you all, the organization, do that day-to-day supervision, provide that guidance, provide that some of that professional development, but Housing Action is going to worry about paying their payroll. We're going to worry about training them. We're going to get them enrolled in our housing counseling exam trainings. We're going to make sure there's efficient, simple structures for them to report on, everything like that, right? We're never going to just leave you in the lurches. And but we're also not going to be clogging your inboxes and making this more of a headache than it needs to be. Some quick best practices on how to make sure your member succeeds in their year and make sure they finish their year with you. Keeping those dedicated weekly one-on-one meetings, particularly for those first few months. If things are going smoothly with your member, it can move to bi-weekly. It can move to once a month, but we do recommend that for a lot of these AmeriCorps members, it is going to be their first nonprofit or office-based position. So they are going to need some support and some just weekly availability on your end to make sure they're on track and troubleshoot any issues they may have going on. I've said it once, I'll say it again, I'll say it 1,000 times before I die that the pay is just not what it should be for these positions. And so supporting them and starting to plan early on in their year for what are they going to be doing after this can help them get through those moments that are quite demoralizing throughout the year and realizing, gosh, why am I working this hard for this low of pay? And you all making sure that it's clear to them that like by the end of this, they're going to be where they want to be. They're going to be employed by you all. They're going to be in the graduate program they want to be in. They're going to be making an impact in their communities for the long run. Can really help go a long way in making sure they finish their year with you. And then I think this goes for every employee, but doing your best to thank them personally and recognize them publicly, whether that's on your social media, during your all staff meetings, in front of funders, making sure that they're getting recognized for their service and the achievements they're accomplishing for you and your organization can make everybody a lot happier. And it's right, AmeriCorps members, a lot of people don't know what AmeriCorps is. And can include a lot of the other staff members at your organization. So when somebody first joins or they're in their 3rd month or their 6th month and staff members are like, I don't even know what that person does or what they're about. I know they're not an employee with us. That can be quite demoralizing. So spending some time at the all staff meeting or sending out an email the week before the member starts or the month before the member starts, just communicating what AmeriCorps is about, what this person's going to be focused on, how it's useful to their organization. Can make it feel like they're welcome and a part of the team. Lastly, surely not leastly, using that Vista assignment description, right? That's that second part of the supplemental document on the application. We have to put a lot of work into it. It's the most closely monitored and evaluated part of the base of the funding that we're getting from the federal government for these positions. So although it is unique to us, it can be a pain to get it finalized and approved. It shouldn't just go back in storage in your filing system. We put a lot of work into it. It can be a year-long guide to what your member is going to accomplish, and it can be used to hold them accountable, right? During those 90-day reviews and during those 6-month reviews for making sure that things are going the way they are planned. And if things aren't, you can set the course right. And some common challenges that happen the living stipend's below the federal minimum wage. There's no easy way to say it. And they're serving full time, and it's hard being poor in America. And I don't need to explain that to anybody on this call. Since it is their first office role, you're going to have delays. They sometimes don't know how to set up direct deposit. So making time in that first week to make sure that they can go run by their bank and get a letter that communicates all the direct deposit information, particularly when it can mean that little of money, having delays in payroll can be all the more challenging, which is why we, again, just strongly encourage considering to offer that supplemental benefit to the members. And just as it can be kind of difficult for you all to quantify the impact or the goal of the position, it can be difficult for these people to report and track their impact. And gosh, I mean, talk about it, grant reporting specifically to the federal agency, let alone other types of funders, should be its own special language that's taught. I think there are courses. I know there's trainings on how to write strong grant applications, and there should be for grant reporting as well. It's their first position like this. They're gonna need some support from you all, but also from Housing Action. And we're gonna make sure that there's webinars, there's guides that can make it as simple and clearly communicated as possible. And then, nobody has a crystal ball here. And at certain points of the year, like if this application you submit to me, this Vista assignment description you submit to me is due in January of this year. And so the positions will start in August and even by next December. Who knows what the world's going to look like? Who knows what organizational changes are going to happen, what staffing changes at your organization happens that are going to make you want to have to change the VAD to set up a new goal. And it's okay if we change it, but we do want to change it no more than once, whether that's at the beginning of their year or at the 6-month mark. And after that 6-month mark, we do expect you to kind of finish the project as planned. But we don't expect it to be, it's not written in stone when you submit it to me and when we get it approved by the federal government. We just do need to make sure that we're in communication if we are going to make changes to it. And so I actually realized I put 2 slides that were the same. And this is the impact of our cohort as a whole from last year. You can see that they raised over $1 million in cash and in-kind funds and grants. Over nearly a third of the people re-enrolled to serve a second year with us. And over 1,800 people received housing services. And a whole bunch more that you can see on our website and in this PowerPoint when it's shared with you after this. And that is the conclusion of my presentation for you all. I'm happy to jump into Q&As. And whether that's for David, whether it's for me, whether it's for NHRC, let it fly. Hi, Ellie.
Hi, thanks, Willie. All right, so we do have one question for David about MISMO. And the question is, how do we bring our data into compliance with MISMO?
Well, the nice thing is you don't have to do anything. It's going to be your developers of your client management systems that are going to integrate the housing counseling data set into the client management systems. And so once that happens, you will probably notice that there will be some additional fields in your client management system, and you'll just be able to enter that information just as you currently enter it, and then it will be reported. So it will actually, for most housing counseling organizations, a lot of what's going to happen with the housing counseling data set is going to be behind the scenes and is going to be engineered by your CMS developers.
And if I remember correctly, David, there is a CMS summit that's happening in the spring. Is that right?
That's right. We are currently organizing a summit for CMS developers. We are tentatively planning on having it in May of 2026, and we will have additional information available early next year.
Great. So folks should start talking to their CMS providers about this for sure. Okay, on to you, Let's see, Willie, on to you. If federal appropriations are delayed or disrupted, how will that affect host sites and member stipends? What protections are in place?
Such a great question, particularly given the year that we've had. Housing Action has a unique style of grant from the federal agency of AmeriCorps, and we already have our money, and we pay our members directly, and so there are no disruptions to our program. We have a grant that covers the period of these positions, and if you apply with us and we approve you and we recruit somebody for you, as long as that person doesn't quit or you fire them, then they're getting paid by us. And there are other AmeriCorps programs that this person may be asking that question about because of during this past government shutdown, AmeriCorps members weren't paid and they were expected to continue serving. But our program, we already have our money in the bank. We distribute it accordingly. So there are no disruptions for this upcoming year.
Okay. All right, so there's two questions here. I'm going to put them together. They're from two different people, but they're along the same lines. So first, can AmeriCorps members conduct housing counseling sessions, and do they come with housing counseling certification?
Great question. And so yes and no, right? So that they can provide housing counseling sessions. They do not, we haven't had one yet that's come equipped with a certification. However, we do prioritize getting them in to those trainings. With the current cohort, right, there's 9 people currently serving in 7 states, including Illinois, and all but one of them is taking the exam that's scheduled for this month, or they took the one in November. But we want them, if they start with you in August, we want them taking that exam no later than December. They're getting used to your organizations, but they're also getting that technical knowledge they need so that in our plan, what we want to have happening is in January, they are being housing counselors for you in addition to completing those those capacity building projects that I've mentioned throughout the presentation.
Okay. If Housing Action Illinois takes care of payroll, does that mean that we send the stipend as a lump sum at the beginning?
Yeah, so you do that $8,000, that project participation fee that we require is sent to us if you recruit your position, right? So if you apply to me and we award the position to you and then we recruit with you, but we don't charge you. We only charge you that $8,000 if we recruit the position with you. Because we don't like sending money back and forth. And gosh, Ellie, I've been doing this so long. I can't believe I forgot to mention one of the best parts about the financial aspect to this is that both HUD and AmeriCorps have agreed you can use your HUD housing counseling grant dollars to pay that project participation fee. So that money that you all get from HUD, I know budgets are tight, right? So, but it's been approved by them to pay that project participation fee to us for that lump sum, and then that's when we're paying the rest of the AmeriCorps members.
So I just want to make sure I understand this, what you just said. So are you saying that if an organization applies to be part of the Housing Counseling Corps with Housing Action Illinois, if they end up recruiting their own person, they don't need to pay $8,000 to Housing Action Illinois?
No. So no, right? If they're gonna, usually people will apply through this AmeriCorps portal. Occasionally people do apply directly to you all. But if you recruit somebody that's going to start as an AmeriCorps member, they do have to pay us $8,000. Like if we're going to pay the living allowance and like the position. Now, if you recruit somebody and they want to you got an available position, then you can do that too. But yeah, the project participation fee is the flat rate.
And then I think the other question is about if they're gonna decide to go ahead and pay an extra amount. Does that, like that $500 for for room and board, for instance, do they pay that ahead to Housing Action Illinois, or do they do something separate directly with the AmeriCorps member?
The latter. They do something separate directly with the AmeriCorps member.
Okay.
And we have guides on what, because here at Housing Action, we do have people that serve at our organization specifically. And so we have guides on how to formalize those relationships and set all that up if they're needed.
Okay, and this is the final question. If there are folks who have more questions, get them into the Q&A right now, because I'm about to ask the last one that I see, which is the program offered annually?
Yes. Yeah. We have been offering this program annually since 2010. And that timeline you see is just about the same every year. The applications are available in December and they're due to me at the end of January, and then we go from there.
And this is our third annual
Yeah.
second week of December session with Willie and Housing Action Illinois on the AmeriCorps Housing Counseling Corps. And with that, that was the last question that I see. So thank you very much, Willie and David, for coming on. And this has been recorded and it will be on our YouTube channel. I did post earlier in the chat, by the way, the April session that David and several other panelists did around MISMO and what's happening with it. So you can get some more detailed information if you didn't get to see that webinar earlier this year. You can watch the recording. So, Ebony, on to the next slide, please. And thanks again to Willie and David for coming on, taking the time to do this, and Willie for managing this every year and doing such a great job. I hear wonderful things from housing counseling agencies that are participating, and so it is from our own experience, I will say, by the way, we tried to do an AmeriCorps application ourselves, NHRC, and I will tell you, it is not a very fun application. It's difficult to understand. It's really not user-friendly. But Willie has gotten so good at it and knows so much about it. As he mentioned, his applications get accepted. So it's a great way to get some assistance from an AmeriCorps member going through Housing Action Illinois. It doesn't matter where you are in the country, by the way, for this program. It can be any place.